It's the remix to Ignition. R. Kelly is in prison, and the WNBA's having trouble selling tickets, sipping on coke and rum. None of these players can dunk. Angel Reese layups look like they were attempted while drunk. Oh, the ticket prices continue their decline without the assistance of the Rue from Waterloo.
Ticket prices are crashing, viewership is dipping, and there's one name missing every time: Cailtin Clark. The WNBA's brightest star is out again, this time with a groin injury, and the ripple effects are brutal. Fans aren't just disappointed, they're vanishing. Empty seats, slashed resale prices, and fading headlines follow her absence like a shadow. But this isn't just a story about injury, it's a warning shot. Because what's happening behind the scenes suggests something deeper, darker, and more dangerous for the WNBA. If the league is this fragile without her, the question becomes, are they building around Cailtin Clark or leaning too hard on her?
Normally, Cailtin Clark is being physically and verbally attacked by jealous WNBA players, so it was refreshing to see Paige Becker speak highly of Cailtin Clark while also defending her.
It's no longer just a narrative, it's a fact. Cailtin Clark is the economic engine of the WNBA. When she plays, arenas fill. When she's out, prices drop, headlines vanish, and the entire energy of the league shifts. She's not just a rookie sensation, she's the league's most bankable star, and the numbers paint a clear, undeniable picture of just how much the WNBA depends on her. Let's start with ticket prices. In the days leading up to major games, average ticket costs for Indiana Fever matchups can hover around $180, $200 until one key detail changes: Clark's availability. The moment it's reported that she may not play or worse, is officially sideline ticket prices nosedive. In Dallas, prices dropped by more than 40% overnight when her groin injury was confirmed. Resellers were left scrambling, and seats that once sold for near NBA prices started showing up for less than $100. This isn't an isolated incident. When Indiana visited Chicago, tickets bottomed out at $3 in the secondary market after her quad injury benched her. Some desperate sellers were reportedly trading tickets for literal Vietnamese currency eyes, dongs. Even the WNBA's most strategic venue swaps now hinge on her presence. Games that were originally scheduled for modest 7,000-seat college gyms have been moved to massive NBA arenas like the United Center in Chicago or the American Airlines Center in Dallas. Why? Because Clark plays, and with her comes the flood: fans, cameras, celebrities, and noise. But the league gambles every time it shifts venues for a Clark-led showdown, because if she doesn't show up, neither does the crowd. One night she's the draw for 20,000 screaming fans. The next, empty seats outnumber warm bodies if she's ruled out. And it doesn't stop with ticket sales. Clark moves merchandise, television ratings, and mainstream media attention like no player in recent WNBA memory. National networks lead with her highlights. SportsCenter clips trend because of her deep threes or fiery demeanor. She's a human spotlight, drawing millions of new eyes to a league that spent decades fighting for visibility. Yet the Cailtin Clark effect also reveals an uncomfortable truth. Without her, the product suddenly looks invisible. Games without her lack the same urgency. Viewership slips. Social engagement slows. It's a harsh reality that exposes how much the WNBA has come to rely on one player and unspoken dependence that's as inspiring as it is alarming. The Fever may be the team that pays her, but in many ways, Cailtin Clark is carrying the league. And while her stardom is a blessing, it also exposes the league's fragility. If one injury can send ticket markets into freefall, it's time to ask the hard questions. What is the WNBA doing to sustain this growth? And what happens if Clark can't keep carrying the weight? Because if the league's heartbeat skips when she's out, it means the WNBA doesn't just have a star, they have a lifeline.
Here's the problem, and this is an ongoing problem in the WNBA. What Paige Beckers is insinuating is WNBA players are above criticism. She used words like inhumane, unfair to describe the criticism that Cailtin Clark receives. And look, Paige Beckers isn't necessarily wrong.
The Dallas Wings recently made headlines for drawing a record-setting crowd at the American Airlines Center. Over 20,000 fans packed into the NBA arena to watch a WNBA game. The league quickly jumped on the moment, celebrating it as a massive win for women's basketball and spotlighting Paige Beckers as one of the night's shining stars. But behind the confetti and headlines, a quieter, more uncomfortable truth lingered. The crowd didn't show up for Paige. They showed up hoping to see Cailtin Clark. This game, hyped by the media as a showdown between two rising forces in women's hoops, was strategically moved from a smaller venue to a massive NBA stage. Why? Because Clark's Indiana Fever were scheduled to play, her impact on attendance has been so seismic that teams now alter venues just to capitalize on her drawing power. But when she was ruled out due to a groin injury, the energy shifted fast. Ticket prices began plummeting down over 40% in 24 hours, and while a decent crowd still showed up, reports of empty seats in supposedly sold-out sections suggested the excitement had taken a hit. Paige Beckers, despite being one of the most hyped prospects coming out of college, has struggled to match Clark's gravitational pull. Until that Dallas game, she hadn't sold out a single home game this season. Her team normally plays in a 7,000-seat community arena, not exactly the home of a superstar phenom. The media loves the narrative of a budding rivalry between Paige and Cailtin, but reality tells a different story. Paige may be talented, polished, and media-trained, but she isn't generating real heat, not in ticket sales, not in headlines, and not in the cultural zeitgeist. The WNBA, desperate to diversify its star power, has tried hard to elevate Buchers, Angel Reese, and others into Clark-level spotlight. But none of them move the needle the way she does. Clark doesn't just bring attention, she brings revenue. She changes schedules. She shifts national broadcasts. Paige Buchers, for all her talent, simply isn't there yet, and the league knows it. That's why they lean on Caitlin's name even when she's not playing to sell games. This creates an illusion. The league celebrates record crowds as a victory for women's basketball, but fails to admit that those crowds often hinge on one player. The Dallas game is a perfect example of this manufactured narrative. It wasn't Paige who packed the house. It was the possibility of seeing Cailtin Clark live. And when that possibility disappeared, so did a chunk of the crowd's energy. If the WNBA wants to build lasting rivalries and elevate multiple stars, it needs to stop pretending hype is the same as impact. Clark's effect is organic, undeniable, and earned. Manufactured stardom can't replace real gravity until the league figures out how to create more than one real draw. Everything else will feel like smoke and mirrors.
Now, I wouldn't describe it as inhumane. That's a bit of a stretch, but unfair is an accurate description. It's not fair that Cailtin Clark is vilified by the media while they pretend that Angel Reese is a superstar. It's not fair that AJ Wilson is described as the most valuable player in the WNBA when Cailtin Clark is the only valuable player.
Let's cut straight to it. When Cailtin Clark doesn't play, WNBA ticket prices collapse. And nowhere was that clearer than the now infamous Chicago game win seats dropped to an eye-popping low of $3. That's not a typo. $3. Less than the price of a coffee, a subway ride, or even a bottle of Gatorade at the arena. And what triggered this nosedive? Clark was sidelined due to injury. This wasn't a one-off discount. It was a full-blown economic reality check. The Chicago Sky, featuring the much-hyped Angel Reese, couldn't hold ticket prices even at baseline levels without Clark in the building. The moment fans found out she wouldn't be playing, resale markets tanked. Stadium staff were practically begging people to fill seats just to avoid the optics of empty rows on national television. Here's the real kicker. This wasn't some small venue in a quiet market. The game was moved to the United Center home of the NBA's Chicago Bulls and one of the largest indoor arenas in the country. The WNBA clearly expected a massive turnout, and they made that bet based on one factor: Clark's presence. Without her, the dream of a record-setting night imploded. The crowd still showed up in decent numbers, but many were lured by last-minute markdowns that turned a primetime ticket into a clearance rack freebie. Angel Reese, often framed as Clark's primary rival, was supposed to carry that spotlight in her absence. But the numbers told the truth, she couldn't. Reese may dominate social media and headlines, but when it comes to converting buzz into butts and seats, she's not even in the same league. The same goes for most of the WNBA's current stars. They may be talented, they may be marketable, but they aren't moving revenue. Not like Cailtin. This $3 scandal revealed something uncomfortable. The WNBA is top-heavy to a dangerous degree. A single rookie has become the entire business model. Her presence inflates ticket prices by 3-5x. Her absence tanks resale markets. And when she's injured, the illusion of league-wide momentum cracks under the pressure. That's not sustainable. It's not even smart. What happens when Clark needs extended rest? What if she's sidelined for weeks or worse, a season? What will happen to those sold-out arenas, the corporate sponsorships, the broadcast deals built on the promise of her face and name? The Chicago game was a crystal-clear warning shot. The league is not built to withstand a Cailtin Clark absence. And yet, some league voices still act as if there's real balance, that star power is evenly distributed across teams and cities. But the market has spoken, and it's shouting the truth loud and clear. Cailtin Clark is the economy. When she sits, the product loses value. When she plays, it becomes premium. $3 tickets aren't just a scandal, they're a wake-up call. One the WNBA can't afford to ignore. From the moment Cailtin Clark stepped onto a WNBA court, her body stopped being her own. It became everyone's business ticket sellers, sponsors, broadcasters, and headline-hungry media outlets. And now, as injuries stack up and visible signs of physical wear appear, fans are starting to notice something troubling. Caitlin's being played into the ground and no one seems to be stopping it. Let's start with the obvious: the leg tape, the slower movement, the dwindling explosiveness in her cuts and drives. Every fan watching knows something isn't right. What used to be lightning-fast transitions and logo-range pull-ups now look hesitant, calculated, almost fatigued. Her recent groin injury only confirmed what so many had already sensed: Clark is running on fumes. But here's what's worse: no one's protecting her. Instead of resting their rookie phenom, the Indiana Fever continues to rely on her like she's indestructible. The WNBA keeps slotting her in for marquee matchups, national broadcasts, and back-to-back appearances. Advertisers push her face to the forefront of every campaign, from sneakers to streaming platform. Everyone is cashing in, but What's Cailtin getting besides physical breakdown and mental exhaustion? It's not just the number of minutes she's playing, it's the intensity of those minutes. Every time she steps on the court, she's guarded like a villain in a superhero movie. Hard screens, shoulder checks, elbows, hips, and the refs, mostly silent. The same league that parades her as the new face of women's basketball turns a blind eye when she gets hit like she's walking into traffic. It's not just about injury prevention anymore, it's about deliberate neglect in the name of ratings. Meanwhile, her team's depth chart looks like an afterthought. The Fever have leaned on Clark to do everything: run the offense, boost ticket sales, be the press conference face, and even mentor teammates barely younger than her. That's an exhausting list of responsibilities for any veteran, let alone a rookie just adjusting to the pro level. Every arena she walks into is sold out. Every warm-up she participates in is dissected online. Every limp, every awkward landing, every wince is documented, analyzed, and worried over. Because the fans can see what the league refuses to admit, Cailtin Clark is not being managed, she's being milked. There's a difference between maximizing your star player and overexposing her until she breaks. Right now, Clark is dangerously close to the latter. She's not just carrying the fever, she's holding up the entire WNBA economy. But what's the backup plan? What's the long-term vision for protecting the player that makes all the lights stay on? That's the disturbing part. There doesn't seem to be one. It's become a cycle. Clark gets hurt, the league downplays it. She returns too early. Everyone profits. Repeat. And through it all, the weight keeps piling on her shoulders and the injuries keep coming. Fans are starting to feel the dread. Every time she hits the floor, there's a pause, a held breath, because everyone knows if she goes down hard again, it's not just Caitlin's career at risk, it's the entire league's momentum. The truth is harsh, but unavoidable. Cailtin Clark is being treated as a product, not a person. And if something doesn't change, soon if someone doesn't step in and prioritize her health over their profits, the WNBA's golden era may be cut painfully short by the very greed that launched it. For months, Cailtin Clark has carried the weight of an entire league on her shoulders every game, every press conference, every tweet. And while she's shouldered that burden with remarkable poise, the cracks are starting to show, not just physically, but emotionally. And what's truly disturbing is how long it took for anyone in the women's basketball world to speak up on her behalf. That moment finally came not from the WNBA itself, not from league executives, not even from her own teammates, but from Paige Bueckers. The former college rival and fellow rising star finally said what so many fans have been screaming for weeks. The pressure on Cailtin Clark is inhumane. Let that word sink in. Inhumane. Because it's not just about the volume of expectations, it's about the total isolation she's faced under them. Unlike the NBA, where star players often rally around each other in times of controversy or injury, Cailtin Clark has been left completely alone in the storm. Instead of solidarity, she's been met with jealousy, physical targeting, and media spin. And until Bueckers spoke up, the silence from other players was deafening. It's hard to overstate the loneliness that kind of silence can bring. Every time Clark takes a hit on the court, whether it's a hard foul that goes uncalled or another bruising double, teammates as if the league is saying, "You're on your own." There's been no statement from WNBA leadership defending her, no league-wide emphasis on player safety in response to the targeting she's faced, and absolutely no outcry from coaches or veterans advocating for her protection. Why? Because Clark equals profit. And as long as she's selling out arenas and drawing ESPN eyeballs, the league has every incentive to say nothing, to stay silent, to let her carry the pressure alone while pretending everything is fine. But it's not fine. Behind every groin strain, every taped leg, and every post-game sigh is a player who is exhausted not just from the games, but from the expectations. Clark isn't just expected to be great, she's expected to be perfect. Perfect on the court, perfect in interviews. Perfect under physical abuse, media scrutiny, and the constant weight of being the only thing keeping this league in the mainstream spotlight. The toll is immense. Emotional burnout isn't just possible, it's inevitable without support. The fact that it took a non-WNBA player like Bueckers to call out the toxicity says everything. The same players who attack Clark on social media or throw shade in post-game interviews are silent when she's down. The same execs who plaster her face on ads vanish when the conversation shifts to her safety or workload. The media too plays a complicit role. Outlets that should be questioning the league's handling of its biggest star instead twist the narrative to make Clark the villain. They call her divisive, accuse her of stealing spotlight, and downplay the physicality she faces on the court. It's a deflection away to avoid addressing the real issue. The WNBA's golden goose is being sacrificed for short-term gain. If Clark breaks down emotionally or physically, there's no cavalry coming, just a spotlight waiting to turn on the next profit machine. That's the chilling part. The system isn't designed to support her, it's designed to use her until she can't perform. So when Bueckers called the pressure inhumane, she wasn't exaggerating. She was saying what the league refuses to. Cailtin Clark is being buried under the weight of $1 billion movement, and the silence surrounding it is just as dangerous as the hits she takes on the court. The WNBA's dependence on Cailtin Clark isn't just obvious, it's a business strategy so transparent it borders on reckless. Every headline, every ticket sale, every televised game seems to orbit around her name. She's not merely a star player, she's the gravitational center holding this entire experiment together. But the deeper you look, the clearer it becomes. This is a gamble with stakes higher than the league seems willing to admit. Let's start with the numbers. When Clark plays, arenas fill up, merchandise moves, television ratings spike to levels the WNBA has never dreamed of. But when she's hurt or even rumored to be sitting out, ticket prices plummet overnight. Entire sections of NBA-sized arenas sit empty. Social media engagement nosedives. It's not hyperbole to say she's single-handedly dragging the league into cultural relevance. But that also means she's become the only sure bet in a sport desperate for broader mainstream appeal. That's where the danger starts. Because no matter how talented, no matter how marketable, one player cannot carry an entire league forever. What happens if Clark's groin injury lingers longer than anyone expects? What if the constant physical punishment she's taking each game finally forces her to shut it down for the season? It's not an abstract scenario, it's a likely one, given the signs of wear already showing. And if that happens, you have to ask, what's left? Because the WNBA has failed, so far, to build a truly sustainable ecosystem of stars who can hold the public's attention when Clark isn't on the court. Take the much-hyped rivalry with Angel Reese. The media tried to spin it as the next great storyline, the fresh angle to hook casual fans. But the reality has been underwhelming. Reese's performances haven't consistently matched the marketing machine's appetite. The rivalry has felt manufactured, fueled more by social media drama than competitive excellence. It doesn't help that when Clark is out, Reese alone hasn't been able to maintain the same level of ticket sales or viewership. That's not an indictment of Reese's talent, it's a sign of the league's desperation to find any narrative that doesn't have Cailtin Clark's face stamped on it. And so far, every attempt to diversify the spotlight has fizzled out. Enter Paige Bueckers, the closest thing the WNBA has to a legitimate co-star in this story. She's immensely skilled, polished in front of cameras, and carries her own collegiate legend status. A rivalry between Bueckers and Clark could be exactly what the league needs if it's authentic. But here's the catch. Rivalries aren't built on PR campaigns alone. They need time, genuine competition, and organic tension. If the league tries to rush it, declare Paige versus Cailtin the defining rivalry before it's had a chance to grow, the public will see right through it. Because fans can smell manufactured hype. They can feel when something is forced, and nothing kills interest faster than realizing you're being sold a story that hasn't actually been written yet. So the WNBA is sitting on a double-edged sword. On one side, a once-in-a-generation talent who is powering a renaissance. On the other, a dangerous over-reliance on that same player. If Clark burns out, gets hurt again, or simply decides she's had enough of carrying the load alone, the entire ecosystem could collapse faster than it grew. That's why this isn't just a short-term business decision, it's a long-term gamble with the future of women's basketball on the line. Without a clear plan to build up other stars and give Clark a chance to rest, the WNBA is playing with fire. And if that fire burns too hot, they might find themselves right back where they started, scrambling for relevance without the one player who made everyone finally care. The WNBA's house of cards is balancing on one player's leg sand. Now those legs are injured. Cailtin Clark has carried the league in ratings, ticket sales, and national attention, but at what cost? Her body is breaking down while the league keeps piling on. This isn't just unsustainable, it's reckless. A league can't thrive by exhausting its biggest asset. And without Clark, the spotlight dims fast. So here's the real question. Are we witnessing the rise of a bold new era in women's basketball, or watching a league quietly collapse under the weight of its own short-sighted strategy? You decide.